If you haven't done so already, please do watch part 1 of the workshop build video. Also, the Carport video will give you a greater understanding on how I made the framework for the workshop. However, this is part 2 of the workshop build, albeit 3 years late. Now moving on to the internal build of the workshop, I constructed the perimeter framework using 100mm by 50mm CLS timbers across 2 levels. As the workshop is built upon a slight incline, this approach allowed me to avoid digging out the hardcore and concrete, making the process easier while preserving the overall internal height of the workshop. To bridge the perimeter framework across both levels, I infilled those with floor joists using 100mm by 50mm CLS timber. I moved on to install the noggin supports between the floor joists. I've also installed additional supports under the floor joists using 100mm by 100mm timber, where this will rest upon the hardcore and concrete sub-base mix. Spacing out the floor joists at 600mm, measuring across the centre points of the joists. After fixing the floor joists, I laid the flooring for the workshop using 18mm OSB sheets. Now with the flooring laid and secured, the internal dimensions of the workshop measures 14.75 square metres. Now approximately at this stage of the build, externally I applied the galvanised corrugated sheet cladding and made and fitted the insulated workshop door at the front end of the workshop. Next I applied the breathable vapour barrier to the external walls to prevent moisture build-up on the timber framework and walls. So before I go any further with the walls, I have to concentrate my efforts upon the roof first. Now, I am currently using the 50mm polystyrene insulation sheets. Not as good as the PIR insulation, but my budget does not cover for that, unfortunately. And being 50mm, it's given me around about a 75mm air gap between the insulation and the roof itself, so I will have plenty of airflow going through these rafters. So my next job to do is to cut down the next sheet of polystyrene insulation and slide it in between these roof rafters. Now, I'm not going to lie, this stuff is very, well, messy to work with and very brittle. Right, so basically I want to try the way around and jam it in between these roof rafters, like so. Stepping up my further stuff to work with. As if there, the R value isn't that great compared to PIR insulation. There we go, and that's now slotted into place. So that is now the roof insulated. I've also done all the walls, and I've also framed off the walls as well. So when it comes to fixing the plasterboard onto the wall, I have something to attach it to. That's what the framework is there for. So I'm on to my next stage now, attaching this vapour barrier to the walls and the ceiling. There you go. I now have the vapour barrier in place. And my next stage is to fix this 15mm plasterboard upon the ceiling and onto the walls. What have we learned today? Well, I've learned today I am not a plasterboarder. My first attempt was horrendous. And that was truly my first attempt. So as you can see here by the two boards, I've just buggered it up. I've removed the boards now. I'm going to start again. I'm going to start from this end this time because I started at the front end, and hopefully by the time I get to the front I should be a master craftsman. Here I have an indentation or a protrusion coming from the brickwork. It's not like the corner part of the house. Comes out about 10mm, so I've had to cut that bit out along here. And I've cut the board down to size, so it should hopefully, in theory, be in the middle of this joist here. And that was the problem I had at that end. As soon as I was coming back, I was coming off the joist line. Because it appears the joists are not straight as well, they do veer off slightly to an angle, unfortunately. So let's get this board up. Right, what I'm going to do is balance it on the head. Try and get it in the corner. Got a piece of wood that's there, it's holding that end up. And I've got an adjustable support here. Screw that up. Yes. Although that's still slightly out. Fuck. So it appears this wall is not straight as well. So none of my walls are straight. My plasterboards are going to look like the world, the Yorkshire world. It's going to be lovely and rolling. I could plant grass on it if it wasn't upside down. As with my first attempt, I was using a standing knife to cut the boards, but it doesn't leave a clean edge. So I've decided to use a wood saw that comes out. Whoa! Let's show you where areas are clear. Okay, so I've cut down my last sheet. So I am in the last corner of doing plasterboard up on the ceiling. I think taking a bit more time with it, a bit more patience, has paid off. And don't get me wrong, I have made a couple of mistakes. It is my first time in doing this, so. Right, squeeze that there. It's all tight. Whoa, fucking hell. I lost it then. Daft mistakes like that where you nearly lose the board. Plus I hate working with this stuff, it's so brittle and so heavy to lift up on your own. Get the first screw in. Now I'm just putting the screws in so they're just under the paper layer. Go along the full board. I have marked out with pencil. Now I realised that I'm not very skilled at plasterboarding, I decided to put down the camera and focus on the plasterboarding the rest of the workshop. Now I wasn't going to attempt to skim the full lot, but I decided to lightly skimmed over the joining gaps with flexible plaster. Moving on to the next stage, once the plaster had dried out, I painted the workshop walls and ceiling in order to hide my hideous attempt at plasterboarding. To improve the appearance where the plasterboard meets the floor, I decided to install the perimeter of the skirting board throughout the workshop. And here is the final result of the workshop interior build. It's amazing what a few coats of white paint and some skirting boards can hide. Nevertheless, it's not as if I'm going to move in. After all, it's a workshop. proceeding with the installation of the electrical system. While the second fix electrics will remain the same, I've changed the first fix after filming this, as the workshop is now fully off grid. Go. 4 hours. That's taking me to get his cable through his bloody wall. 4 hours. Sweating the arse off. I can clearly remember the day and date when I was working in the loft, pulling through the 10mm twin and earth, as it was the hottest day on record. This part of the installation was always intended to be temporary, until the workshop became off-grid. So I'm not going to delve too deep into the electrics, as this will be a standalone video for the off-grid side of the workshop. After the installation of the first and second fix of the electrical system, this is the end result, albeit 3 years later on. So that's how I made the workshop. As alluded to within the video, the workshop is now fully off grid. That's down to thanks to the Campervan, which is acting as a battery storage for the off-grid side, and also powering not only the workshop, but it's powering the bungalow and the workshop with the assistance of a 4,000 watt solar array, which I've now mounted onto the carport roof. Thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.